doesn't make you just not care about the Game Awards, I don't know what will. Winners of the Game Awards are determined by a blended vote between the voting jury, 90%, and the public fan voting, 10%. All of our votes combined only make up 10% of the total voting power. The other 90% comes from a selected jury. Who is that selected jury, you might be asking? I'll show you. Tell me what you notice right off the bat. What do you notice? Outside of a few content creators types, Skill Up, Game Ranks, so on, this is mostly journalistic outlets. You get the freaking LA Times, GameSpot, there's IGN, Polygon, Pride.com. What's Pride.com? I don't think I've ever heard of that. Let's find out. Pride.com. Oh, this is a juror for the Game Awards, ladies and gentlemen. This outlet carries more voting power than you and everyone you know combined for the Game Awards. Pride.com. Naturally, I have to ask the question. If we don't respect games journalists and our perception of their integrity has continued to drop year over year, why does anyone pay attention to the Game of the Year awards if the majority of who decides who gets what is these journalistic outlets? And I use the word journalistic very loosely. Why should I even take the time to vote on any of these if Pride.com can outweigh my vote and all of yours? Why does it matter? Game Awards has officially stated that DLCs, expansion packs, remakes, and remasters are eligible for the Game of the Year award. If that doesn't make any sense to you, it's because you're right. If you've got eyes, ears, and a prefrontal cortex, DLCs should not make sense to you at all. A DLC is not a game. Does a DLC exist that I can play without also having to have access to the base game? I mean, to my knowledge, the answer is no. So if DLC is going to be considered for Game of the Year, does that mean every DLC can be considered for Game of the Year? On the flip side, does that mean that games cannot have their DLCs considered as part of the game? Say you want to vote on Destiny 2. Does that mean you can't consider any of its DLCs in that vote now because each of those DLCs now qualifies for its own Game of the Year nomination? It makes no sense. This is Greg Miller. He got community noted. This is so funny to me. DLC should be eligible for Game of the Year. It's a game. It's a game people played this year. If it's that good, it should be honored. The community note says, Shadow of the Erdtree is not a game. DLC are not games, but additional content for existing games. Unlike game sequels, DLC expansions cannot be played without their respective base game. Okay, so it looks like at least a plurality of people agree with me here, and often several hours of progress within it to be accessible to begin with. The nominees for Sandwich of the Year are, there's a pizza in here with the sandwiches. Honestly, I think the more accurate analogy would be having a award category for Sandwich of the Year, and then one of the nominations being lettuce. Thanks, Sadat. Thanks for providing us with this image. What they've done by nominating DLCs for Game of the Year is now this tomato can be Game of the Year. Now this ham can be Game of the Year. These pickles can be Game of the Year. This lettuce can be Game of the Year. Say the base game is just the meat and the bread, and everything else is DLC here. Does that mean that now, when you're looking at this sandwich as Sandwich of the Year, does that mean you're supposed to ignore all this DLC? Now, community notes are not the end-all of everything correct and moral, right? It's just, this just means enough people had something to add to this post. A lot of posts will get several proposed community notes, and enough people say, yes, this is helpful, and then it ends up as a community note. So GG's, Greg Miller. The easy solution is just make a DLC category. It's not that difficult. Well, there's DLCs out there that deserve praise and recognition, I think. I did a whole video on DLCs on the main channel. I think and Shadow of the Erdtree was one of them, just not in the Game of the Year category. That's ridiculous. I am so tired of people conflating remakes and remasters. I get it. Sometimes there's a remake that should have just been called a remaster, and sometimes there's remasters that change so much they could qualify as remakes, but these two things are not the same thing. They're not. In my opinion, I think a remake could go for Game of the Year as long as it is transformative of the original game and it stands on its own as a video game. A remaster? Never. My answer is never. There's never an instance where I think a game that upped its polygon count a bit or maybe changed a couple of small mechanical changes should ever be considered Game of the Year. That's just ridiculous. But like, compare original Resident Evil 2 to remake Resident Evil 2. Those are two very different games. And I think RE2 Remake could stand on its own as a transformative product to be a Game of the Year nominee. Let's take like The Last of Us Remake. Absolutely not. It is the same game. But you see, they changed the graphical blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, shut up. It's the same game. That's like calling the Dead Rising remaster a new game. Just because it's on a new graphical engine doesn't automatically make it a new game. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. There's so much overlap that even Capcom knew better than to call that a remake. Here's an opportunity to praise something about gaming. Let's take it. It only makes sense to have a DLC category. No disrespect to the card playing community. I don't understand how a card game can be nominated for Game of the Year, but I have yet to see anyone who's actually played it say anything negative about it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just an uninformed normie on that. Best game direction. How many categories is Shadow of the Erdtree in, dude? Didn't Elden Ring win Game of the Year? Is this just an excuse to get him to win Game of the Year twice? I think there's a good case to be made that DLCs shouldn't be in this category either, to be honest, because you're talking about game direction and design. Best narrative, here we go. You guys know that so far I've really liked Silent Hill 2 Remake. A remake that follows the same story as the original should not be in a category for best narrative. I'm sorry. It shouldn't. If the best thing you can do with a remake like this is just don't change the narrative that's already been there for over 20 years, and all you got to do is just copy and paste and get the best narrative award, that's absurd. Why wasn't Silent Hill 2 nominated for Game of the Year? Why wasn't Space Marine 2? Why wasn't Helldivers 2? All of those deserve that nomination more than freaking DLC. But a remake that keeps the same narrative as the original should never be nominated for a Best Narrative Award. Nominated for Game of the Year. Nominated for Art Direction. I think Art Direction, if this isn't in the category for Art Direction, that's a crime. This doesn't belong here. I'm sorry. Great game so far. So let's remake Titanic. Let's follow all the same principles of the narrative, and then let's give that movie Best Screenplay. Come on. Best Art Direction. A crime. Best Audio. Best audio design, and you put a game up here that sells you pay to win audio? Get out of here. $20 a month and you can have better directional audio in Black Ops 6. Also, let's nominate it for best audio design. Am I voting on the base audio design or am I voting on the premium audio design? Which one is it? That's what she looks like? This is the protagonist of Star Wars Outlaws? Is that real? I know this is about best performance, not best looks or something, but I can't not comment on this. That's her on the right, and that's her in-game model on the left. Ubisoft transformed a beautiful female model into literally a broom. I couldn't not comment on that. Only one dude, and it is what it is. If everyone's got a good performance, they got a good performance. I'm going to shout out another YouTube channel. His channel's called Behind the Voice, and he interviews voice actors and stuff. Here he is interviewing Alan Wake. Here he is interviewing the guy that plays James. That's Luke Roberts. I watched this interview with Luke Roberts on Silent Hill 2. I even left him a nice comment, I think. Man, I hope this man gets more work. I really do. I'm actually really impressed with how many people he gets on here. With such a small channel, 11.5 thousand subscribers, and he still gets them booked for interviews. It's crazy. He does great work. So if you're interested in seeing that kind of stuff, go watch his interviews. Innovation and accessibility. Is this the only one Dragon Age got nominated for? Wait a minute. So the game that offers premium audio for $20 a month is being nominated for adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience? Get out of here. Best ongoing. If we have a category for this, why don't we have a category for best DLC? Make it make sense. Ooh, Helldivers 2. Right in the cynical gamer heart. If Sony weren't involved, I would absolutely give them this vote. Just Arrowhead alone and nobody else, I would give them this vote. Even though there was that period where they were nerfing things and stuff, but they've done excellent since then, I think. I've said several times that although I dunk on Fortnite and its target audience all the time, I think they are a shining example of what a live service game should be. I don't like their monetization, but they put out more than enough content to make the game justified to play for a long time, in my opinion. A lot of these other games, they try to copy the monetization, but they don't copy the content. Best community support. Sorry, Helldivers. You made a deal with the devil. You can't be shocked when the devil stabs you in the back. They got their funding from Sony, and then Sony ended up giving them a horrible, horrible news cycle for a while there. Ooh, best adaptation. Where's Halo, the TV show? Why isn't it here? Maybe we can all just forget that show exists. My vote's going Fallout, and it's not even close. Or talk about an adaptation that's so respectful to the source material, but doesn't directly adapt it, like it's in the same world. I was beyond impressed with that. Most why is this an award? Grand Theft Auto's on another level. Like, out of principle alone, I feel like I have to vote for that. Like, Grand Theft Auto 6 could probably charge $100 for the game and people would still buy it. What? Look at the picture they used of Queso. Why is this a category 2? This is really dumb to me. This shouldn't be a category. For a streamer or content creator who's made an important and positive impact on the community. There's a VTuber on here too? Ooh. I don't know if Queso has made an important and positive impact, but he's entertaining. Best esports athlete, don't know, don't care. Best esports team, don't know, don't care. Notify me when voting opens for each round. What is this? Are we drip feeding votes? Is this live service game award stuff? As a reminder though, Pride.com's vote matters more than ours.